Hi everyone, it's Kate. So in this video, I'm going to tell you my journey on how I became a UX designer and how you can be one too. So let me start with why I'm making this video, but before that, let me address the not elephant, but the microphone microphone in the room. I don't really have a proper microphone and I'm just using a phone cam to film this, and I don't really trust the phone camera to pick up all my voice, and there's a lot of background noise outside that I can't really control. So as much as I would love to mentor people who are beginning their UX journeys or people who are just knowing about UX, I can't really commit to a long-term interaction with someone, and I just don't want to say that I want to mentor and ghost them eventually. So hopefully with this video, those people who want to learn about UX who are just starting would pick up some things by me telling how I became a UX designer. I guess I want to give back to the community by making this video, and hopefully you can pick up some things if you're new to design or new to UX. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Kate. I'm an interaction designer at one of the country's telcos. So take a guess which telco that is. We only have two, so just pick one. So as an interaction designer, I'm mostly concerned with mapping out digital experiences for our customers. So that involves making wireframes, making mock-ups, and making prototypes so we can test and iterate and go back to us. So we're working on the product that's growing, so it's not a one-off thing. We check how it goes, see what we can improve, because customers change, trends change, and so we have to change. We have to continue in designing. So before college, I always knew that I wanted to pursue something on the creative side. So I never really wanted to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. And there were limited courses that in the Philippines, at least, that were on the creative side and that were accessible. So I took up information design in Ateneo de Manila University. Go Blue Eagles. I didn't really have any profession in mind, but I had some expectations of what I was going to be, just to mention some. So maybe I could be a graphic designer or an illustrator, but I didn't have like a specific goal in mind. And I was just trusting myself that later on I'll figure out what I want. I had a rough idea of what UX is. I mean, I've heard about it, but I never really understood the concept of what UX really is. This is how I found about UX. So I gained a better understanding of what user experience is during one of my first major classes in college, which was my information architecture class, which I really enjoyed. And a lot of things that I learned in my information architecture class, I still apply today.
Hey, it's Kate from the future editing this video. So I'm going to explain UX in a few words, but it honestly deserves a video of its own. But basically, user experience is trying to figure out the profile of a certain user and how they might ideally use a certain product or a service. Also, when you know your user well enough, you may already orchestrate the feeling or the behaviors that you want them to feel to that product so they can navigate through it meaningfully.
In my attempt to make most out of college, I joined orgs as a graphic design creative. So a lot of my work in these orgs involved making publication materials for them. Baby posters, Facebook profile picture templates, and even non-traditional stuff like invitation or anything that requires graphic design. Basically, I did. I did in those orgs, and maybe I'll show some of my works here. I enjoyed graphic design for a while. I really did. I mean, I enjoyed coming up with concepts. I love that I was not fully restricted creatively, but I don't know, I got tired of it. I guess it was just not my thing. I felt like there was no purpose to what I was doing, even though these orgs have great advocacies, great great causes. I didn't see myself doing this for the long term. During this time also in college, I discovered an org called User Experience Society, and my first interaction with this org was when I attended their web development workshop. So they taught us some basic HTML and CSS in this workshop. They seemed like a really good org. The org was still at its infancy. So I didn't really think of joining it because I thought, I really thought that my path was graphic design. So I still continued that. The day or the time I decided to become active was in my third year of college, and I applied as a junior product designer for this org. I was closely mentored by the officers who are more well versed in UX, and I really learned a lot from them. And it was during this time that I learned about the brand sprint. I really enjoyed being a product designer, a junior product designer during that time, because I found myself doing doing org work more than my academic load. So which was a good sign for me that maybe I should pursue this as my profession. This org organized their case study competition called UX University. So in this UX case study competition, I was working on campus design problem, which was getting to school and getting home from school. So this topic is actually really close to my heart because I was a commuter in college and I didn't have any car, and a lot of people had the same problem. My solution for that during for this case study is to promote carpooling more with a carpooling app.
Hi, so I won third place actually in that competition, and I'm really thankful the opportunity presented itself to me because I think it was a turning point of my UX life. So there, if you want to actually read on it more, I have it in my portfolio. I will link it here.
Okay, so since I had already content for my portfolio, I thought it was time for me to get an internship. I think it was summer before my third year, summer before my fourth year of college. I took an internship at this startup agency. So since I can tell you what I did in that internship, I'm going to tell you what I learned. The first thing that I learned is to work with other people, and it's different when you're students because you have the same mind basically. You have a shared understanding of what you're doing. But when working with other people, it's quite different because it's people you still have to get to know about, and you have to build rapport with them. So I guess I built the soft skills during that internship. I also learned how to rationalize and philosophize my design more. I mean, hard skills wise, I was okay. I mean, I wasn't excellent at it, but I'm more or less I already know what I was doing. When I do my designs, or at least in Figma or in Sketch, I know why my designs are like that. But when it's time to explain things, I have trouble articulating what I'm going to say. So in this internship, I learned how to practice that because I had to explain a lot of things to my boss, and he would ask like, "Why did you design it like this? Why did you design it like that?" It's a good practice for me because I was able to. I still apply it until now. Like even though I'm bad still at public speaking, I think I've had some improvement, and it's thanks to these kinds of internship that I was able to have a foundation to start with. So during that same summer, I also ran for vice president of consultancy in User Experience Society. I got elected in the position, luckily. It was nice because for me, it was my way of giving back from what I learned from my previous mentors back then. So I guess the most important thing that I've gained from being the vice president for consultancy was the leadership skill. Being a leader really challenges you because you have accountability for a lot of things, and when things go wrong with your member, the blame doesn't end with them, it also ends with you. It was a lot of pressure for me to mentor them the correct way, and I was making sure that all the things I say them are not fake news. And I was nervous for myself because I could, for all I know, I could be telling them fake shit, like fake news.
I just don't want to miss out this part of my life, but I just want to say that I took another internship at another startup, and the experience was different, but I had more or less the same learnings.
I graduated on May 2019, and I only rested for a few months, maybe. Actually, I rested for 2 months. Then during my rest period, I was applying for jobs in between, and I applied for a few companies, and eventually I got in this telco that I was talking about as an interaction designer. So yeah, that was my UX journey. Here I am now. So where can you start? So if you have zero background on design, I recommend 3 books for you. So the first book is The Design of Everyday Things. So this is the UX Holy Grail. So in this book, you will learn about the technical things on user experience design, and what's interesting about it is it's more on the psychological side of things. So you'll learn why people feel these things when interacting with these kinds of things, and you'll learn a lot of things. You'll be like 5% smarter after reading that book. Then another book that I recommend is this one, Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. This book is very interesting. It's a short read. It's an easy read, and it tells you not really the do's and don'ts, but what works and what doesn't work and why in web design. So it's a very interesting one because it uses very casual language, and you finish it in a day if you try hard enough. Then the last one that I recommend is Hooked by Ariel. I recommend this for people who want to dabble into digital design, digital development. It basically tackles like what people are hooked what people are hooked into, and what makes it bad, what makes it good, and what makes it bad, because not all things that you're hooked on promotes good behavior. So that's really interesting. My recommendation, or like my suggestion when you're starting, is to familiarize yourself with the design thinking framework. So the design thinking framework is basically a step-by-step process on how you can go about with your design. Familiarizing yourself with the design thinking framework really guides you, and at least for me, it helped me to not get lost in my design process. And when you're starting, another suggestion is to familiarize yourself with the industry you're getting into, like especially when you're having doubts about UX, or if it's something you really like. What I really recommend you to do is to attend meetups and talk to people who are actually designers and what their work is like, and give it a feel if it's something you'd really enjoy. And lastly, if you've decided that you want to pursue this as your career, take everything that you've learned by heart, remember them, document your progress, and look for a mentor. This doesn't have to be forced. You can do this organically. Like, don't go up to someone and ask them, can you be my mentor? Build a relationship with them, and eventually you get things from them. So it could be an indirect mentorship, but there are also mentorship services that you can avail if you can shell out a bit of your money. The best way to learn really is through application. So get an internship, join an org, join a case competition. Just basically find opportunities that you can apply your work on. And another important thing for me is to document your progress. So documenting your progress will really help you a lot with your career, because eventually you might want to put it in your portfolio, and it's just easier to remember things that way. And maybe when the time comes when you can't explain to your parents what your job is, you can show them your portfolio, or you can just show them the things that you've worked on, and maybe they can understand what you really do as a UX designer. So yeah, that was my journey on becoming a UX designer, and also my tips on how you can become one. I hope my experience has helped you in some way, and I hope the tips that I gave out were helpful in guiding you if ever you're feeling lost, or if ever you're just starting with UX. So yeah, if there's anything you want me to discuss or make a video on in the future, just let me know, and I'll smile you later. Bye.